Hello and welcome to another lap guide for the iRacing Camel GT series. This week we're at Suzuka Grand Prix. Here's the lap first. All right, so lap time there's a 1:44.907. So we're going to go ahead and jump back to the start of the lap and go through this in more detail turn by turn. So weather we have for this week is late afternoon. I used a 86 Fahrenheit track temp for my testing, and that might be a little bit on the warmer end for what we normally see in the later afternoon, so we'll see how that goes. The optimal times I was able to get in this weather was about a 1:44.360, so about a half second off of that still. And we're going to go ahead and go through this turn by turn, but before I do that, just a couple of things to quickly mention about the series and about the guides if you're new here. The series is going to begin broadcasting on the GSRC YouTube channel, so that'll be starting with this week's race on Saturday, and that'll be the same time, 1700 GMT or 1 p.m. Eastern time on the Saturday race of every week. So just thought I would point that out. Also, if you're new to lap guides, I think it's probably important to mention a couple of things here. I will be posting the setups that I used in the description of the video. I also post them in the forums and also on Setup Sync. And if I find improvements, I will post additional setups in the forums typically of any improvements that I'm able to find with the car over the course of the week. So I try to get these out early in the week so that hopefully get people up to pace quickly. Also newcomers to the series to kind of help get a feel for the car quickly is really the intention here. And hoping to help anybody out, obviously, as much as I can here with these guides. So let's go ahead and get up into turn by turn here. One other little doodad that was added here is this little steering indicator in the JRT overlay. So that's something new. I think it's kind of useful to see a little bit more minor adjustments to steering that sometimes isn't really visible from looking at the wheel. So hopefully that's a useful feature there to have. All right, so going down into turn one, you're going to want to kind of start to get on the brakes right at about this pathway here. The 50% braking point is a little closer to where you kind of see this extra dirt patch coming in. And that's also right about where I start to turn in. So that's about a 50% brake, and then there's going to be a downshift into fourth. Now you don't necessarily need a downshift into fourth. I found it helped with rhythm, and maybe it kind of helps. Maybe the gearing does help a little bit with balance of the car. You could wait and downshift into third up here further. There is another downshift that's going to happen at about 30% braking into third here. But for my rhythm and just consistency and just making sure that I'm running a nice smooth pace. Really, all of the long sweeping corners on Suzuka, you really just want to keep that nice, smooth, even pace. Not any quick, like sudden adjustments to brake, throttle, or steering. Just real smooth for most of the corners here. And so that's really the kind of the theme here, is to kind of keep everything nice and smooth, and also keep your speed up. Pay attention to your tires. Crank up the sound of your tires if you're having trouble hearing them. I go in and I adjust the tire sound so that it's highest, and then maybe back off things like engine and other sounds that I don't want to be too loud once I've got that set to highest. So that's something that I always recommend, is listening to tires to kind of help get an idea for what they sound like when you're about the limits of grip. So coming through into this corner, you really just want to carry as much speed into it, and using the speed of the car, obviously you're generating downforce, 140 miles per hour here still, and that downforce is going to help give you grip into the corner. If your goal is to kind of set the car up on the curbing here, and then turn in and get as close to the curbing here to the right as you can, then that's about the speed you're going to find is necessary as you get to this point, and as you start to turn in to how much you can carry through here. We'll see about the lowest speed is about 85 miles per hour right here at that point, getting the car right up close to that curbing. And then of course, as you reach this is your apex here, you're getting back on throttle and slowly, gradually feeding the throttle in, ensuring that you're not going to run too wide on the exit here, so that you can get back to full throttle to set up the next corner. So let's go ahead and play this through one more time at speed. So one other thing to quickly mention, always blip on downshift, and don't downshift too soon. You can obviously skip shifts if you're using an H pattern, but don't do that too soon. You don't want to blow your engine. I do that pretty frequently, and a lot of the corners here, as I mentioned, I actually tend to downshift some of these corners more sequentially just for rhythm, but like I say, it's not necessary. Just whatever's most comfortable. All right, so coming down into the S's. The S's is really about throttle modulation more than anything, although you'll see me doing just a little bit of light tapping of the brakes as I'm trying to modulate the right amount of speed and get the car to the spots where I want it to go, obviously. So apexing here in the middle of the curb and lifting just enough to make sure that the car can turn in and reach the curbing there. You see how much curbing there is being used, and then getting back on throttle again, and then getting ready to turn in, and once again using some of the curbing here to the right. You'll notice as I started to turn back into the right, there was just a slight tapping of the brakes. So again, like I say, just you're going to be kind of balancing the car and using both little bits of braking and throttle inputs through here to kind of get a feel for, right amount of speed that you can carry through. Getting back to throttle here, the full throttle briefly, and then letting off. And again, maybe just slight tapping of the throttle and brake, and modulating that speed to get through here as quickly as you can. So that the idea is that as you hit each of these apexes, you want to be at a comfortable point at the curb where you're going to be able to get back on throttle at the apex and then start to roll on back to full throttle. Now this corner, actually these last two corners of the S's, try to treat them as a little bit more of a later apex. It'll help set you up for the Dunlop curve, which is the curve coming up out of the S's here. So as you kind of late apex here, that'll actually help set up a late apex into the final corner of the curve here. You got to slow down a little bit more and sacrifice your exit in this last corner. You don't want to run too wide because you really want to get the car set up for your turn-in point to the Dunlop curve over here to the right. So getting the car all the way over to the right is pretty important to make sure that you can set up to take as much speed through the curve as you can. So before we do that, let's play the S's back through at full speed here. All All right, so turning into the Dunlop curve here, you want to aim to kind of hit a later apex toward the latter part of the curbing here to the left. You don't want to apex too soon because that's going to lead you into a little bit of an awkward line coming off the corner, which might put you up into the grass, and you may actually have to lift as you come up to this curbing to avoid running wide and even wide over here into the grass and dirt. And so that's what you want to avoid. You want to avoid having to lift. You want to make sure that once you get to full throttle, you can commit to full throttle. And you can see I'm committed to full throttle just past the end of the curbing here. Sooner would be better, obviously. And so as you set up to turn in, giving yourself a wider entry to the corner will help you carry more speed through the corner. You'll see a bit of a lift of throttle. The car's coming over, hopefully getting close to this curbing so that you can get back to throttle sooner, and then committing to full throttle and then carrying your speed all the way out through the corner. So let's play that. And full throttle all the way through here. So now as we come down into the Degner curve, you're going to just 50% or so brake at about the 50 sign. And very quick downshift into fourth and get back to throttle right away. The reason you want to get back to throttle right away is that if you turn, this is a sharp turn, and if you turn in sharply and you're not back to throttle, you're going to overload the front end and you're going to spin. And so it's important to get that downshift and braking done just prior to turn in. So get that 50% braking done at the 50 sign, downshift into fourth, and then getting back to throttle already. You can see that. I'm going to actually kind of modulate a little bit, lift a little, tapping brakes slightly, and quickly back to throttle. If you're off throttle and you carry too much speed into this corner, and you're off throttle and you're braking more than necessary, you're very going to quickly find yourself spinning off into the grass and the gravel here. So that's real important to make sure that you get that braking done at the right amount of time. So do it a little sooner if you're more comfortable with that. Don't do it at the last second because you're not going to be able to get back to throttle and get the car balanced coming off the corner. So as you come off the corner here, you can kind of straddle up over the curbing here. You can even go a little bit further. It gets pretty rough. I like to kind of just get the car, pointed about the middle of where the curbing is here, and then just kind of follow that down. So before we do that, let's just play this corner through at speed real fast. All right, so coming down the center of the curb here, we're going to start braking it at about the midway point, right about here already. 50% braking, holding that for a bit, and then downshifting into second. And turn 9, very fun corner because as the car comes down into turn 9, your suspension is going to kind of compress, and you're going to have extra grip here with the extra downforce as it kind of compresses in here. But don't try to do all of your turning all at once or too quickly. You still want a bit kind of a gradual turning radius, because if you try to carry too much speed, there's a temptation to push it a little bit too hard here. And as you do so, you'll find running a little bit wide here and then some throttle oversteer on exit. So making sure to get the car as close to this curbing without touching it too much. This will unsettle the car a bit. As the car comes around the curbing here and as you're getting back to throttle soon after that, you want the car to be balanced and gradually rolling on throttle so that as you get back to full throttle, there's not too much happening there with the car, bouncing from hitting too much curb or too much hard last minute turning that's going to also cause you to spin. So this is a real common spot right here to spin. And so to avoid that spin, like I say, don't try to carry too much speed, but focus again on an early throttle right off the apex here and kind of a nice gradual turning radius. So let's see how that looks here. Coming off brakes on the downshift, kind of starting to gradually turn in almost a 90, just under a 90-degree turning angle here, and then starting to roll back on throttle, and now opening up the steering as rolling back on throttle. Feel free to use the extra runoff here on the left. Another foot or so is an off track, but you can use about this much here. It is fairly rough. You'll see a bit of a bump right there. So I like to try to even avoiding this, running this wide if I can, but that is safe from an off track, and no problems there. I didn't see any damage. If we look at a rear chase here real quickly, I like to take a look at the front end of the car in areas where you're hitting a lot of curbing and bumps there, and look for any points to watch out for damage. And I haven't seen any just here in my initial testing, so that's a good sign. So let's play this corner through at speed before the braking point. Get back to my cameras here. So coming down toward the hairpin, you really just want to get the car nice and close to the right here. Threshold brake is probably right as you reach the end of the red and white curving. You'll see I start to get brakes a little before that, and then threshold at about 70% or so, right at about the end of the curving there. Be patient on turn in. You want to use as much of the space that you have here, and you'll see that I don't really start to turn in until maybe around the thicker area of dirt here. Turning in, a real tight turning radius, a little bit more than 180 degrees actually. You can see that happening here. And again, the goal is to get back to throttle just as you're coming across the apex. It's a little bit of a later apex because you want to make sure that as you come around the apex that you can open up steering and kind of aim out and use all of the road on exit to get to throttle sooner. So you'll see getting on throttle here in first gear, and this is the only first gear corner I believe that I'm using first gear for. So don't have to double check on that I can't remember now off the top of my head if I'd use first gear in the final chicane. I don't think I do. So first gear here, and real gradual on throttle because of all of the extra torque and power in first gear. You don't want to spin. So making sure you're getting straightened up before you get to full throttle, and then shifting up into second there. So let's play that through. All right, so full throttle all the way through here, through turn 12, setting up spoon. All right, so I have some tips here that I think that will be helpful for speed and consistency. Experimented quite a bit with different techniques and a little bit with different lines here, and this was about the quickest, this particular lap was about the quickest time, or equal to the quickest time through here. And what I like to do is to downshift into fourth. So there's going to be braking here, about I don't know, 60% or so braking here to the right. I guess the point of that is to start braking at about this this access road here, and then threshold soon after, 60%, and then downshift into fourth. And with the extra speed that the car has now, you're really just using that to kind of, really similar to the very first turn in the track, is where you're just kind of carrying that speed into the corner, using the downforce of that speed to maximize your grip through here. You want to get as close to this curving here to the left as you can. I don't like to touch it, not to upset the balance of the car too much, but get close to that, and then let the car run wide all the way over to this curving where you're now downshifting into third. And so you'll see that I downshift into third there. And once again, just like I do with turn one, I just sequentially downshift into fourth and then into third. And for whatever reason, I think that helps with my rhythm a little bit and my timing, and it helped me with my consistency with that. So as the car reaches the curbing here, the goal is to turn away right as you get toward the end, or just before you reach the end. You don't want to run off into the green surface here, which will be an off track. But that's actually the point where I found that I could consistently begin my turn in off the corner and also carry a nice amount of speed safely without a spin on the exit of the spoon here. And do that really consistently. So now as the car is turning in, just very light tapping of the brakes. You want to get fairly close to this curbing, not too close. You don't need to touch it at all. In fact, don't touch it just to avoid upsetting the balance of the car. You've got to keep it real smooth through here. As the surface kind of feels like it's falling away, you can very quickly spin as you're rolling on throttle right here. So make sure that you're keeping it wide and using all of the track here. If you're turning away from the track out point too soon, that's again a point where you're going to cause the car to spin. So this will be a very common place to spin in the laps. So let's go ahead and play this through its speed. All right, so this is all full throttle all the way through this section. Very, very easy to get around this corner here at full throttle. I actually just let the car run kind of a more natural, straighter line through the corner to keep the speed up. You don't have to run this wide, or the car can get through here really easily. But just letting it run kind of a more natural line to keep that speed up really is the whole point there. The braking point into the final chicane, or the triangle, is right at about the 100 for threshold. So there's going to be about 80% braking right at about that point. So really starting to brake before that, but keep that in mind as you're being your threshold brake. Now, when I say threshold brake, just to kind of reiterate some things that I've stated in my prior lap guides. The point of threshold braking is to get quick, hard braking done early when you've got a lot of extra downforce with the extra speed of the car. So the technique of braking is to get that nice hard braking. Typically 80% or so is usually the harder braking zones. And with the extra downforce, you can get away with harder braking initially, because that extra downforce is going to keep those tires pinned to the track. And you can brake harder, more efficiently early on. But once you hit that threshold, and the car starts to slow, you need to start to trail off and ease off the brakes. And if you don't ease off the brakes, obviously you're going to start to lock up. But to get the braking done efficiently, anytime I say threshold braking, that's really just kind of like your peak braking point. And getting those peak braking points and the right amount of braking done at those points is pretty important just for the consistency and running an optimal speed through these zones of the track. So keeping the car here to the left on braking. Now, while it is possible to completely kind of cut over the first curbing here, I did some experimentation with that, and it's not too rough through here, but I really wasn't able to find extra speed doing that. It is an optional line, kind of an alternate line to kind of cut across the curbing, and you'll see that happen pretty frequently with other cars here at this track. Other cars will also cut a lot of curbing here to the left. This curbing is less forgiving with this car, and I try to only use some of the red and white portion. Any further up onto that, and it really bounces around quite a bit. So I would not recommend taking any more curbing than I've taken here on the second corner of the chicane. But for the first corner of the chicane, you can cut across that. And with a little more practice, maybe be able to find some more time with that. Probably a little more difficult to find the consistency with it than just kind of coming around it. For my testing and for the times that I ran through here, this is the line that I just found to be quick and consistent. And like I say, really wasn't able to find the time in my experimentation with just cutting across that curbing. So anyway, your mileage may vary. Try it out and see what you're able to do there. But as you're braking, you want to make sure that as you turn in, you're off brakes. You're in this instance getting pretty close to the curbing here, and I don't like to touch the tip of the curbing just to keep it smooth through here, but just kind of giving a little bit of light throttle through here, and getting set up to kind of cut across this red and white portion of the second part of curbing and back to throttle just as the car's crossed that. And now already getting prepared to straighten out the line and get back to full throttle as soon as I can start to get the car straightened up. Now, This isn't first gear, so I should have remembered that. This is the other first gear corner. So again, you want to be careful getting back to throttle out of first gear. Very quick spin can happen here if you're back to too eager to get back to full throttle. There's going to be the shift up into second. Now, as you're coming across this last corner, there's kind of a temptation to turn in and kind of cut across here. I would recommend not, just for safety. You can get away with it if you do it just right, but I recommend to avoid a spin as you're shifting up into second and then into third, just to kind of keep the line a little bit wider and smoother, and you're going to be much less likely to spin there. So there's kind of a temptation to kind of take that shorter route through, but it really is a little bit more likely to spin the car. Maybe as the track temps cool down in cooler weather, that'll be safer to do. But at least in the weather that I tested with here, I found it just much easier and safer to kind of just gradually angle around the last corner here of the track. So let's play through the last chicane from the braking point. All right, so there's a lap of Suzuka. Hope you found it helpful. Talk to you later.